Hey, it's Drybear. By popular request, we will be continuing my dungeon guide series for Dragonflight, and today we're going to talk about the Azure Vault, one of the longest dungeons in Season 1 Dragonflight. We'll talk through its pros and cons, talk you through the important interrupts, mob interactions, and boss fights, and the mechanics that you need to be aware of so that you're all geared up to get Keystone Master on your Azure Vault and beyond. If you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come say hi. So what we're going to do is talk through my last Azure Vault, my 15 on my Resto Druid. We'll talk through the important pulls, what to be aware of, and so on and so forth. The first run killer is going to be this first room and hallway for most groups on high keys. The initial pulls here can get really nasty. The first thing to cover is that there are whelps flying around these hallways. They are abundant in the rest of the dungeon as well. If you get near the whelp and the whelp gets the cast off, it will awaken all of the stoned mobs in the middle there, and it can easily cause a wipe. There's not many routes. In fact, I can't find any routes that include these mobs. You can very easily ignore them for the whole pull, for the whole run, and you can get by getting your forces without them. You can do some crazy early, especially on tyrannical runs, you can run some really early bloodlust, kill the mobs, whatever. But this first room and this hallway is the first hard part about this dungeon. These tree ants spawn little patches on the ground that do tremendous amounts of damage. Your healer should be blowing cooldowns here because there's so much damage that's going out individually. Some people even bloodlust just these first two mob sets. Go around the whelps, get past them, get to these, pop bloodlust if you have to, and then pop healer cooldowns because it's gonna hurt real bad. Then you'll get to this point here. Most people will just pull the four little saplings, the lashers that are here, and then you can jump down just because taking the ramp takes a little bit longer than the rest of it. The lashers themselves aren't really all that threatening. You just have to pull them together if you want to interrupt their mystic vapors if you can. It's really helpful if you can. You don't have to get them all, but it's super important. The more you can interrupt, the better. Once you're done with those, most people just jump down because you go right into the first boss arena, super straightforward, and then you pull all these little sludges. These sludges aren't really all that dangerous. You just have to make sure that when they die and they explode, you're not caught in it. The big thing is that you have more of these tenders, these tree ants in here. You want to make sure that erratic growth doesn't go off. If it does, everyone needs to clear out of the area. The healer needs to cleanse that person because they'll be turned into an ent. And then on the ground, there'll be patches as well. So don't get hit in the burst. Watch your AoE, watch your feet. Burn down these tree ants and you're ready for the first boss. First boss is actually super easy. One of the easier ones in the whole dungeon. The basics here is that the tank just needs to have a hold on him, use tank cooldowns, keep the tank alive. He's going to be hitting the tank really hard. Then he'll spawn these little saplings all over the room. And then later on, he'll knock everyone back and give you a giant AoE around you. You just need to spread out so that your AoE will burst on these little saplings, cause sludges to spawn, and then you bring the sludges into the tank so that the tank can destroy them. This erupting fissure can also convert the saplings into sludges, which can be useful to kind of help limit the damage output there. The sludges, again, when they die, they explode, so just don't be caught in it. So this is the AoE that you'll see. Everyone just needs to spread out, make sure that all the trees are covered, make sure it explodes on the trees so they turn into sludges, bring them into the boss so the tank can grab hold of them, AoE them down, and you're good to go, and that's the first boss. Then once you're done, always make sure you go to the northeast. You see up here in the top right, that's how I remember it. Everyone, like, I swear to God, almost every single run, there's someone that runs towards the stairs because they see the open gateway. The stairs is not it. So northeast, remember that, go towards the door, and then you'll head down the hallway. Down here are more whelps. You can see that their pulsing aura gets bigger and smaller. Most runs, most routes won't include the mobs that these activate. So you wait for there to be an opening, you go through without triggering them, and then you ignore the frozen, the solidified mobs that are here. Four of the little golems plus the big golem is just such a mighty pull. You'd rather just skip those, go straight to the next ones. These ones are very straightforward. They put a sleep on someone, just interrupt that sleep, and then you're on to the next room. Take the book, land on the platform, and then you have to go and you have to clear everything on this platform for the books in the middle to appear so you can descend one level. These pulls are rough, especially on Fortified and Raging. The biggest mob here is going to be the big, tall elemental. He has two important casts, one that you can interrupt. The other one is the Forbidden Knowledge. You just have to avoid this. On high keys, this will one-shot you. If you get hit by this AoE, it will kill you. So just make sure that you're aware of it. Do the dance around, kill it down. If you're playing tank, be wary that the pat does go around in 180 degrees, so you might have to pull the pack back a little bit so that the pat doesn't end up in the pull there, because it can be devastating, especially on fortified. And then you want to jump on, kill these. The seal keepers aren't too bad, except for one cast. Icy bindings. Their condensed frost isn't really a huge deal. Icy bindings is huge. It does a giant AoE, does like a third of everyone's health or half of everyone's health, and roots them in place for 5 seconds. It can kill you, especially if you're pulling the big guy that makes you dance at the same time, and if you get hit, you get one shot. So the big thing here is make sure Icy Bindings is always interrupted every single time. If you have to let a sleep through, let it through, let the healer cleanse it, but don't let the Icy Bindings go off. That one can absolutely kill you. And one small note, as I'm noticing it here, these little runes on the ground, if you step on them, a second later they'll explode and polymorph someone for a long time. As healer, I've just been running and triggering these ahead of the group just so we don't have any issues. So when I have HOTS rolling, or I got, people are topped up, I'll run over, trigger them early before people get there, and then come back, and then it kind of alleviates that problem. Just be aware that those are there. Same thing here, same kind of pull. The big trick with these little golems, the 4-legged golems, they have a frontal cone that is massive. Anything in front of it, it goes a really long distance, and it does an insane amount of damage. So firstly, tanks face the golems away from the group, the smaller golems. And secondly, everyone else, help your tank out. Do not be in front of the golems ever. Again, on high keys, on raging fortified, it can one-shot you. So just do not be in front of those small golems ever, unless you're the tank. Once you're done with this platform, books will appear in the center ring. You click those and you go down into the next ring, which you don't have to kill everything there. You just have to clear enough to get to the book that allows you to get to Azure Blade, unless your route calls for more forces down this platform. Usually people will clear like a quarter of it. They'll just clear just the part up to Azure Wing. You get to that book, you can click on it, fly over to the next boss, and you're good to go. The constructs here aren't super complicated. You get more of the elementals and more of the draconids that cast the icy bindings that you need to interrupt. So clear that out, watch out for the runes on the ground, and you're ready to go to the second boss. Second boss time, click the book, go across, and then you have this room to clear out. The second boss has a lot of AoE and will fill the room. Most routes will clear this entire room. Some routes even just leave like 1 or 2. But it's good to clear this out because these give a decent amount of forces for your time spent. If you kill these guards here, the vault guards aren't really just melee. The tank eats them, you heal them. There's a big mob, a lieutenant that's going around the room. You want to ideally pull that lieutenant by itself unless you're going to lust that pull, because he increases the damage of any mob in his area. That's what that giant glowing ring around him is. Any mob that's standing in that aura has increased damage, so it can be devastating. If you feel like you're just going to pull it, pop cooldowns and bloodlust, maybe that's one big pull you do for higher keys. But again, you still have these seal keepers that cast icy bindings, which can really screw you over in those big pulls. So most people just pull them in clumps, pull the big guy by himself so that the aura doesn't have any benefit, and then move on to the boss. Once that's done, you're ready for the second boss. 2 phases that he repeats over and over. The first thing is he'll spawn adds. These adds cast a very damaging illusionary bolt. Make sure you interrupt that, kick it, and pull it. Ancient Orb is a projectile. He shoots forward. Don't get hit by it. It hits really hard. And then you'll go into the second phase where he starts an image and he'll start dancing. So this is the second part. He'll go into the middle. Let me grab my pen. He'll go into the middle and he'll spawn ads on these platforms here in the middle. And he will be immune until those ads die. So you have to kill all 4 of the ads. But during that process, he'll be shooting out these rotating rings of circles. Like these circles will be going out constantly. They do a ton of damage. Help your healer out. Don't get hit by these. Avoid them. You just have to kill all 4 of the ads and then get back on the boss. Pro tip on this one that can help you do a bunch of extra damage, especially on tyrannical weeks, is the boss Azure Blade will run to this middle platform and doesn't teleport, doesn't speed over there. So what you can do is you can actually drag the boss to the corner of the room, and then when it's time to phase over, you can just run with the boss and DPS him before anything happens. He'll just kind of trot his way over to the middle of the room. You can drag him back as long as you have DPS classes that don't lose a lot of DPS when there's a lot of movement. You can drag him away, he'll come back, and you can drag it again. And that's it. And it just repeats itself from there. So kill the ads, interrupt the ads. Those shots start hitting really hard, especially on tyrannical. avoid the orbs that come out, and you're ready for the next part. Next, you go down a hallway here, and you'll have these ads, and you'll go into these big rooms. This is where a lot of the makeup forces are made to make sure you hit the force count. These breakers are kind of annoying. They do an AoE shout that does damage. The healer just has to heal through it. Then they'll target one person, charge to that person, knock them up, and deal damage. They just need to face away so that he doesn't charge into someone else. And then you heal through his big roar, and that is it. Next, you go into the big room here full of runes. Remember, these runes, when you step on them, will explode and polymorph people. As healer, again, what I like to do is go and trigger as many of them as I can that are safe, so that, you know, if people have to move around, these frogs jump constantly. You can just kind of, that way they're out of the way, they're no longer a problem. So they're gone, and then you can deal with these. A lot of mobs here get picked up and used. Almost all these rooms usually get cleared, save for maybe one mob. You don't want to jump down to the final boss and then have nothing left before that. But that's basically it. The little mobs just do a little tear attack. The frogs jump, just don't get hit by the jump. And watch out for little spikes of damage on people that get hit. And then if you're a DPS, just kind of watch your health. But other than that, you're just clearing this trash. You're nearing the final stretch here. It doesn't feel like it because the last two bosses are back to back. But you clear this, you have a hallway down there with more runes. You're still clearing these. You can stack these all up and run into the next room and pull all of that as well, just to get all of it done as you move into the final part. Once you go through this final room here, there's going to be 2 of the vault guards at the very end. This is pretty tough, especially like, again, with Raging or Fortified, where they get really strong. They have the big AoE pulse, they have the single target knockback, focus target, and they can knock you off the edge as well, so just be wary of that. Usually you just pull them together, burn them down together, depending on whatever affixes you have, and then just be careful not to get knocked off the edge, and healer, just make sure that everyone stays alive. And you're ready for the last 2 bosses in the dungeon. Now, these bosses are back to back, but they can be pretty draining, and they have some mechanics that can be super punishing as well. So you want to fly across, you have this boss here. The first thing to note on this platform are going to be these rune spots here, here, and here. This is what you use to avoid his big his big room-wide AoE frost attack. You need to be able to stand on these when he goes to the middle and floats in the middle, and then they get consumed. So once you stand on it, it protects you once, it gets destroyed. You have to rotate around the room, go to the next one, it gets destroyed. Go to the next one, it gets destroyed, that sort of thing. So you're using those in rotation, so keep that in mind. The first thing you'll encounter with this boss is Frost Bomb. He will do this often. He will cast Frost Bomb. All the people in the party will get an AoE around them. After a few seconds, it expires and then places a big frost patch on the ground underneath you. You want to just be as mindful of space as you can with this. Put it in the corner, put them next to each other so they don't overlap. Keep in mind they tick really hard, so you want to make sure that you use, health stones or personals to get out of it. Stampeding Roar, Wind Rush Totem, things like that help you move out of it as well. When he jumps to the middle, you want to get to one of these platforms. You can heal through it if it's in the ice, if you have to, but you can use that, and then you want to rotate to the next one. Then at the end of him doing that, he's going to pulse. It does a bunch of damage. He'll come back, Frost Bombs, rotate. He'll target someone with the Icy Devastator as well. That person just needs to get away from everyone else because it'll be pulsing AoE frost damage on them all the time. So you can see that beam. They just need to get away from everyone. You heal through it. You rotate through it. That's the whole fight. Using space wisely, not getting caught by the Frost Bombs, not getting screwed over, and then being on a rune when he jumps to the middle and jumps back, and then you're ready for the last boss. There he goes. He drops. In the middle is going to be books again, and it's right into the last boss. And this one is deceivingly difficult. There's a lot going on with this one, and I've seen many people not know how to play against it or not really know what to do. So let's talk about the mechanics of this last boss, Umbral Skull, so that you know what's going on. The first major mechanic are the shards that break off of his body and land on the ground, and the ones that he spawns. So this will happen periodically. There is a cool strat that tanks can use. What you can do is, instead of tanking here, you can tank up. The collision actually allows you to go up like all the way up here against the wall. It's possible this gets changed or balanced or patched. But what that does, obviously, is the fragments can't spawn too far from the boss. The further to the edge you get, the more you limit where the crystals can spawn. So these crystals will spawn after doing enough damage to the boss and when the boss spawns them himself, and they'll start deteriorating as they stand there. Eventually, they'll explode and do ridiculous damage to everyone. So you need to have everyone go and start killing off these little fractures as fast as possible so they don't get that fracture cast off. It can easily wipe the whole group. So everyone just needs to run, kill them, come back to the boss. The trick with this is, in this entire fight, you're getting this debuff. You can see this on my screen. I have a weak aura for it right here. Every time you move, you get a stack of this debuff that slows you. And this makes this fight a lot more challenging. So you want to be able to stand still for 4 seconds to get rid of the debuff, or have a healer cleanse you. Druids can, shamans can ghost wolf, druids can shapeshift, and then also thundering makes it so you can't be slowed under 100%, so you can reach each other and clear the effects. So you can use thundering to remove it as well. So you want to be careful about how often you move, plant yourself in the right spot, make sure everything's going well and according to plan. Then later on in the fight, these orbs will spawn. I have yet to figure out what the logic is for these orbs. I thought at first it was whoever has the highest stacks on them, whoever is moving the most. They just, every time I think I have a theory on how they function, they find a way to prove my theory wrong. So I just generally be aware of them. If you're a fast moving class, try to get near them and get their attention. Sometimes they go towards healers and tanks more. As the healer, I try to pull their attention all the time. So I have them with me and I get them away from the group. But these can hit incredibly hard. Make sure you're managing the positioning of these. If they bunch up too much, especially if you have a lot of melee classes, the tank might need to move the boss over to the corner. Lastly, there is a frontal, a dragon cleave that your team does not want to be in. There's a dragon strike on the tank, which is a big fat dot and a massive hit. Warriors can spell reflect it. DKs can absorb it with their shields. So you can very easily absorb that. If you're not a tank that has that, just be aware of it and make sure you clear it out. So again, good use of space, good use of planting. Make sure you're aware of what's going on. Drop your stacks as often as you can. Move as little as you can and kill the fractures while avoiding the orbs. And that is Azure Vault. If there's other dungeons or other parts of the game you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be happy to make any kind of guides for you guys, as you seem to be really liking them. So there you go. If you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.